Samsaradava nalalidaloka Tranaya Karduna Gana Ganatvam Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasorasena
Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasorasena
Romancha Kampa Shutaranga Vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityananam Shingaratan Mandira Marjanado Yuktasya Bhaktam Staniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Chaturvida Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadana Triptan Haribhaksha Sangram Kritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Radhika Madhava Yorapara Madhurya Leela Ganarupa Namnam Pratikshanasvadanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Nikunjayo no Rati Keli Siddhai Yayali Bir Yukti Rapikshaniyai Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam साक्षादरित्वेना समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भायतेव साद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादो भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादो न गति कुतोऽपि जयंस्तु वांस्तस्य यशत्रिसाद्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nilamadava, Radha Nilamadava, Radhe. Jai Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Jai Vishapara Paramanta Prabhajaka Acharya Sutara Srashi Shimati Vani Grace Abhacharvin Bhakti Vedanta Swamara Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstava Kachara Vaishnava Saramani Patita Pavana Shila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Patita Udhar Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Raghunath Jiva Gopala Bhakta Dasa Guna Sakdo Swami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Kutu Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Prabhu Nama Sankirtana Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Guru Harima Varana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jai Ki Jai Yuga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Priyapadanga 29 to Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Narada Kun Samakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Matrudam Ki Jai Fellowship Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai Shmaya Purnavadvip Eka Chakradam Ki Jai Paramakarma Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Ketra Jagannath Puridam Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspada Dev Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulas Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Mathura Dharani Ki Jai Shamaveta Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanande All glories to some of the bodies All glories to some of the All glories to some of the bodies All glories All glories All glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Guru
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada Lada Dayane. Ranyakasipu Vakshaha. Silatankanalaye. To Narsimho Parato Narsimho. Yato yato yamita to Narsimho. Bahe Narsimho Hridaye Narsimho. Narasimha Madim Saranam Prapade. Tava Karakamalabare Nakamadhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanubringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisa Hare Jai Jagadisa Hare Jai Jagadisa Hare Nakamadhuta Singam Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanubringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisa Hare Jai Jagadisa Hare Jai Jagadisa Hare Jaya Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisa Hare 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 Jai Narasimha De Jai Jai Narasimha De Jaya 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 Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Narasimhadev Bhagwan ki
Vishnu Bhakti गोविंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवासते विष्णु भक्ति प्रद देवी सतभक्ताय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी देवी
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो एई अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो एई अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो
ये तो मारा शरण लो तारा पंच पूरन हो कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हरिवो सदा जुगल रूपरासी एई निवेदना धारो साखीर अनुगाता कोरो सेवा अधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दासे कोई ये न मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा रीना भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. तुलसी महारानी जय, तुलसी महारानी जय, तुलसी महारानी जय, तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी जय, वृंदा देवी जय, वृंदा देवी जय, वृंदा देवी नित्य गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, नित्य गौरा हरि बोल, नित्य गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, नित्य गौरा हरि बोल। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्यारे देवी सतवताय वृंदाय तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्यारे देवी सतवताय वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय के सदा सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्यारे देवी सदवताय तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी O Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire is to attend the service of Shri Radha. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me residence, pleasure grows to Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg to make me a fellow Kavadins of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own man servant. Krishna praise. May all sing love Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vindhiri Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jaito Rapanam Bhajanam Pavamada Vahatanam Shreya Karva Chandika Karanam Yavadu Jivanam Anandam Purivardhanam Padipadam Purnamrita Shradanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Jayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Itadushi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Tudaivam Vidrishamya Janinanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahashnuna Amanina Manadina Kirtaniya Sada Hari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmane Janmanishari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahaitu Ketuvai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritamam Visame Bhavambudo Kripaya Tapapar Pankaja Stitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galora Shrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadrudaya Gira Pulakai Chitam Papukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakyusha Prabhusa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Ashrishabhapadaratam Pinashtumam Adarshnar Marmahatam Karotuva Jata Jata Bhavidadatulam Pato Mat Pranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai Namo Mahabaranaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namine Guru Tishema. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire condition of life for repeated birth and death. The Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are no hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One is to chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your Kazra divorced from service, birth after birth. O son of Maharajananda Krishna, I'm your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I've fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, or will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if it handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods and Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. Do not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It was so an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas who worship the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of one, and they are full of compassion for fallen conditioned souls. Javancha Bhukatarugascha Vasindhurugaivacha Puritanam Bhavanabhu
Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Yananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Bhave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Chitaha Pachikamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Visakanya Vitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pasyatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namini Shivasavanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanaga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastate Namaste Gurumani Shri Mutaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Sakshar Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambode Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Vrayate Gora Vir Bhavabhamestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhamashri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Damne Gurachase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhaktasaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Bhangur Mama Manda Mater Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpadumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamanam Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Satma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vrite Susurabhira Vipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venun Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Pakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobham Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasad Manavalhyamamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranaya Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Jivanga Lalitani Taprakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vritti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsada Sampragam Yo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prabhadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekop Yasura Jayatam Jagadanda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayaya Danta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Sam Yarup Mahina Sanayanabusa Suktar Yameva Nikama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Pratibhavitabis Tabilya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hidayesu Vilokayanti Yam Sama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Amena Tistan Nana Avataram Makarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamam Yo Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagaranda Koti Koti Swasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Bhinam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Visaya Veda Vitayamanam Sadva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasu Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Lilaya Tena Bhuvanani Jayaya Jasram Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sute Sutesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vihitascha Yena Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shrististati Pralaya Sada Vasakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanu Rupam Abhyasya Chachesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesha Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasam Buddhim Tam Samparti Bharya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Deeparchadeva Hita Santanam Abhyapetya Deepayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhate Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Mananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalamya Param Smamurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jaganandanata Vishnur Mahansahi Yasya Kala Viseso Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Baswan Yatasma Sakalesa Nijesu Teja Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbad Vande Pranama Samayesa Kanadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Maruddhisasya Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschaksuresa Sabita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Papa Nichaya Sutayastapamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Dayasta Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Bhakata Bhavava Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosvakarma Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintucha Bhakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsaya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadvisim Tanamapurete Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Sriyakanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Drumabhumish Chintamani Ganamaito Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apitad Aswadyam Apicha Sayatra Siradibhi Swavati Surabi Vyashta Sumahanime Sardakyova Rajati Nahiyatra Pisamaya Bhajay Sritad Vibham Tamaham Ihagolokam Itiyam Vidantaste Santakshiti Viralachari Katipaye Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Shri Guru Vastika Prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like torrents of rain. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments and clean their temple. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzed as that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited Kajal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my most respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, and we're going to do again verse 35. Amuni Bhagavad Rupe Mayate hi anuvarnite Ube api nagrinanti Maya shriste vipaschita. Amuni, all these, Bhagavat, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rupe, in the forms, Maya, by me, Te, unto you, He, certainly, Anavarnite, described respectively, Ube, both, Api, also, Na, never, Grinanti, accepts, Maya, external, Shiste, being so manifested. Vipachita, the learned one who knows. So notice that Maya is used twice in this verse, but the first one, the A is short, so it's Maya, so that means by me. And the second one, the A and the two A's are long, Maya, so don't get confused. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Neither of the above forms of the Lord, as just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know Him, meaning the Lord, well. Purport by His divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The impersonalists think of the absolute personality of Godhead in two different ways, as above mentioned. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in His Vishwarupa, or all-pervading universal form. And on the other, they think of the Lord's unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to these two conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle, but both of them are rejected by the learned pure devotees of the Lord because they are aware of the factual position. So, this pantheism, that's the religion of the American Indians. That was the general idea of Spinoza and one of the Steins, Einstein, right? So, and a lot of people, ascribe to this. They think the whole material nature is God. Actually, they're referring to, they don't know it, but they're referring to the Virat Rupa. And then you have the Buddhists and the Mayavadis. The Buddhists, they think that the highest stage is nirvana, when you stop all the functions of the body, including the mind. So that is the flip side of material manifestation, called avyakta. Then the Mayavadis, they claim that the ultimate stage is the Brahmajyoti. And they reject the whole material world, and they say that when Krishna appears, he has a material body, and they reject the entire spiritual world, both Vaikuntha and Goloka. And they say there's only Brahmajyoti, there's nothing else. That's the only reality. Everything else is false. So, therefore it says, the impersonalists think of the absolute personality of Godhead in two different ways, as above mentioned. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in His Vishwarupa, or the all-pervading universal form. And on the other hand, they think of the Lord's unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to these two conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle, But both of them are rejected by the learned, pure devotees of the Lord because they are aware of the factual position. So the devotees, they reject the whole Mayavad philosophy because Mayavad philosophy, in other words, merging into the Brahman effulgence, that's the only place where there's no devotional service. There is devotional service in the spiritual world. There is devotional service in the material world, including hell, including the hellish planets. It's possible for people to be engaged in devotional service. There's only one place where there's no devotional service, that's the Brahmajyoti. So for Vaishnavas, Brahmajyoti is hell. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. Brahmajyoti, Brahmano hi pratistaham amritam yasya. And it says that the Brahmajyoti is, in the 14th chapter, last verse, amritas yasya cha sasvatasya cha dharmasya sukaisya kantikasya cha. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahma, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Well, why would the Vaishnavas say that it is hell? Because there's no devotional service there, right? So, although it is a position of immortality, it's imperishable, it can never be destroyed. And it's eternal, it goes on forever, and the constitutional position of ultimate happiness, well, only if it's connected to Paramatma and Krishna. If it's not connected, if it's by itself, then one will not attain ultimate happiness. So the Brahman state is one step, or the first major step toward Krishna. But if you deny the existence of Krishna, then it becomes hell, because there's no devotional service. If you don't deny Krishna, then it's possible to advance to, like the Kumaras, the four Kumaras did, and Sukadeva Goswami, advance to the Paramatma realization and then to Bhagavan realization. But if you say there's nothing beyond the Brahmajyoti, then it becomes like hell and eventually fall down. Okay, so then it says, but both of them, meaning pantheistic idea or Virat Rupa, nature, or monism, everything is one, are rejected by the learned, pure devotees of the Lord because they are aware of the factual position. Now, devotees don't reject the Brahmajyoti, they just reject the Mayavadi concept of ultimate liberation. This is very clearly mentioned in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which records Arjuna's experience of the Vishwarupa of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So, this is a very significant verse, 1145. Let's go to that. 1145 says, after seeing this universal form, which I have never seen before, this is Arjuna speaking, I am gladdened, but at the same time my mind is disturbed with fear. Therefore, please bestow your grace upon me and reveal again your form as the personality of Godhead, O Lord of Lords, O abode of the universe. So, Arjuna was interested in seeing the universal form only in order to educate other people in the future and to show a criterion by which you could know if someone is a devotee or not a devotee. What does that mean? That means that if someone is pretending to be God, and there's so many people like that, then they should be able to show their universal form. or the universal form, not their universal, or the universal form, as Krishna did to Arjuna. And there's a description of it. There's a thorough description of it in this 11th chapter. And if they can't do that, then you know that they are not bona fide. So, in order to see the universal form, the person who claims to be God, if they are Krishna, gave Arjuna the eyes to see the universal form. You can't see the universal form with the eyes that we have. So now we have a foolproof criterion to test a person who claims to be God. So, therefore, it says,
so Maharaj, it looks like it's both, the 11th chapter is the real test for whether a person is a real guru, but it's also whether a person is a devotee. Because whether we are attracted to the universal form or to the personal form of the Lord, it's both. It looks like.
Well, what in the 11th chapter, 2nd verse, it says that now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he is inspired by the statements of Krishna, but in order to convince others. I'll read from the beginning. The Lord said that because he entered into the material universe by his personal representation, the cosmic manifestation has been made possible and is going on. Now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he is inspired by the statements of Krishna, but in order to convince others in the future who may think that Krishna is an ordinary person, Arjuna desires to see him actually in his universal form, to see how he is acting from within the universe, although he is apart from it. Okay? So there's two purposes here. One, to confirm Krishna's statements that he is both in the universe and both out of the universe, right? Not in any way conditioned by the material universe, but yet he is within the universe, and as Virat Rupa and as Paramatma. Arjuna's addressing the Lord as Purushottama is also significant, since the Lord is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whenever you see the word Purushottama, it means Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purusha means a person, and Uttama means completely not affected at all by the modes of material nature. He is present within Arjuna himself. Therefore, he knows the desire of Arjuna, and he can understand that Arjuna has no special desire to see him in his universal form. For Arjuna is completely satisfied to see him in his personal form of Krishna. But the Lord can understand also that Arjuna wants to see the universal form to convince others. Arjuna did not have any personal desire for confirmation. Krishna also understands that Arjuna wants to see the universal form to set a criterion. This is a good word, criterion, criterion. Look that up. It means a standard by which you can judge something. Is that what it says?
It says a principle or standard by which something may be judged or decided.
Yeah, there you go. So it's a very good word, criterion. criterion. So what is the standard? The standard is, if someone claims they're God, they should be able to show the universal form. And there's like I said, there's a description of it here. It's not something unknown. It's something known. And that's why the 11th chapter is so important. There's a description of the universal form. And they have to be able to give the eyes to see it. They might say, oh, well, you're not surrendered enough to me, so that's why I'm not going to show it to you. No. That's a phony excuse. Krishna didn't make that point. You know. So Arjuna did not have any personal desire for confirmation. Krishna also understands that Arjuna wants to see the universal form to set a criterion. For in the future, there would be so many impostors who would pose themselves as incarnations of God. Wow, that's the truth. The people, therefore, should be careful. One who claims to be Krishna should be prepared to show his universal form to confirm his claim to the people. There you go. So now you can ask Shridi Sai or Pataputra Sai or any of those people, or Muktananda or Nityananda, all the Anandas, you can ask them all. You know, if you are actually God, then you can show me the universal form, and I have a description of it. I'll tell you, if you want to know what it's like, I can read it to you and see if you can do it, you know. Okay, so, and then Arjuna says, if you think that I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, then kindly show me that unlimited universal self. So that you can also say that to the person, you know. And he's saying it in a very humble way. Purport: it is said that one can neither see, hear, understand, nor perceive the Supreme Lord, Krishna, by material senses. But if one is engaged in loving transcendental service to the Lord from the beginning, then one can see the Lord by revelation. Every living entity is only a spiritual spark. Therefore, it is not possible to see or to understand the Supreme Lord. Arjuna, as a devotee, does not depend on his speculative strength. Rather, he admits his limitations as a living entity and acknowledges Krishna's inestimable position. Arjuna could understand that for a living entity, it is not possible to understand the unlimited infinite. If the infinite reveals himself, then it is possible to understand the nature of the infinite by grace of the infinite. The word Yogeshwara is also very significant here because the Lord has inconceivable power. If he likes, he can reveal himself by his grace, although he is unlimited. Therefore, Arjuna pleads for the inconceivable grace of Krishna. He does not give Krishna orders. As some people, well, you know, if there's a God, then well, how come I can't see him? Let him come here right now, and then I'll believe. No, you can't order God like that. But Arjuna is being very humble here. Krishna is not obliged to reveal himself unless one surrenders fully in Krishna consciousness and engages in devotional service. Thus, it is not possible for persons who depend on the strength of their mental speculations to see Krishna. Okay, so now we come back to 1145. Arjuna, after seeing the universal form, he is disturbed in mind because he sees past, present, and future. He sees everything that's happened and everything that's happening and everything that will happen all at once in the material world. That means he's seeing wars, seeing people being killed. He sees this thing, he sees that thing, people engaged in sense gratification, and people chanting Hare Krishna. So to see all of that in a big flash is disturbing, because 2/3 of it is all bad stuff. It's only 1/3 that's good that makes up for it, but still it's disturbing. So Arjuna is always in confidence with Krishna because he is a very dear friend. And as a dear friend is gladdened by his friend's opulence, Arjuna is very joyful to see that his friend Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and can show such a wonderful universal form. But at the same time, after seeing that universal form, he is afraid that he has committed so many offenses to Krishna out of his unalloyed friendship. Well, he's afraid now because he didn't really, he acted very intimately with Krishna, right? And now he feels as if that he might have insulted Krishna by acting so intimately with him, as if he's just a buddy. Thus, his mind is disturbed out of fear, although he has no reason to fear. Arjuna, therefore, is asking Krishna to show his Narayana form, because he can assume any form. This universal form is material and temporary. And that's a very important point. The universal form is a material form, and it is temporary. It doesn't have an eternal planet in the spiritual world. This universal form is material and temporary, as the material world is temporary. But in the Vaikuntha planets, he, meaning Krishna, has his transcendental form with 4 hands as Narayana. There are innumerable planets in the spiritual sky, and in each of them, Krishna is present by his plenary manifestations of different names. Thus, so there's 24 different ways that Narayana can hold the 4 opulences, Shankha, Gada, Padma, and Chakra. Yeah. Wait a minute.
So Maharaj, about the universal form, we know it's a temporary, you mentioned right now, right? So as it created and it got inhalated. So
What?
Inhalation, I mean the universe's annihilation, sorry.
Yeah.
Inhalation.
Big difference.
So inhalation, okay.
And annihilation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So there are many universes, not only one universe. So does Krishna has the multiple universal forms, for like one form pertaining to one universe, or how does it?
Yeah.
So he had multiple universal forms. It's not just one form.
Well, he's present in every universe as Virat Rupa, as the Brahma Jyoti, and also he comes in different incarnations.
Yeah.
Simultaneously.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's like Lord Rama, who's incarnation of Krishna, right? He sees Parasuram, who's an incarnation of Krishna. They almost get into a fight. So this is bewildering for most people, but this is part of Krishna's transcendental potency. He can be simultaneously present with many avatars of himself. Right. Okay, so then it says, there are innumerable planets in the spiritual sky, and in each of them, Krishna is present by his plenary manifestations of different names. So what are those different names? Virat Rupa. There is Brahma Jyoti. There is incarnations like Lord Rama. There's Krishna himself in his original form comes. And Parasuram and Vyasadeva. So that's why it says, by his plenary manifestations of different names. Thus, Arjuna desired to see one of the forms manifest in the Vaikuntha planets. Of course, because there are many Narayanas. As I said, he can hold those 4 opulences in at least 24 different ways. And there are unlimited number of planets in the Brahma Jyoti. And Lord Narayana is present in all of them. So there's not just one Narayana. There are many, many Narayanas. There's only one Krishna. There's only one Balaram. But there are unlimited numbers of Narayanas. Right? And then there's unlimited numbers of the Vishnu avatars, because there's unlimited number of universes. Okay, So, I mean, ordinary people hearing this, you know, they just get bewildered. This is not possible. That's because they don't have faith in Krishna. But the devotees believe this. They know it's a fact. Look, how many mosquitoes are there in this world? Would you be able to count them? How many hairs on the bodies of the living entities are there in this world? You say, we can't even count this world. What about all the other, you know, universes? But Krishna is aware of everything, and is present everywhere. He's present in every cell of your body. Every cell is an individual also. So all this stuff is bewildering for the materialists. And because they do not accept that Krishna has unlimited power, they remain atheistic. But one thing that the devotee accepts by regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is the unlimited power of Krishna. And then we can understand there's a major difference between ourselves and Krishna, because we're limited in our powers. We can't emulate Krishna at all. So therefore, someone who claims to be God is the most obnoxious, low-class scumbag in the world. And on what level is he even equal to God? He's not equal at all in any way. So they are the worst people. It's the last snare of Maya, when a person claims to be God. Okay, so then it says, of course, in each Vaikuntha planet, the form of Narayana is four-handed, but the four hands hold different arrangements of symbols: the conch shell, the mace, the lotus, and the disc. According to the different hands, these four things are held in. The Narayanas are held in. The Narayanas are variously named. All of these forms are one with Krishna. Therefore, Arjuna requests to see his four-handed feature. And then the next verse says, O universal form, O thousand-armed Lord, I wish to see you in your four-armed form, with helmeted head and with club, wheel, conch, and lotus flower in your hands. I long to see you in that form. And then Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, happily have I shown you by my internal potency this supreme universal form, meaning Virat Rupa, within the material worlds. No one before you has ever seen this primeval form, unlimited and full of glaring effulgence. So now we see what a dear devotee and surrendered devotee Arjuna is to Krishna. No one had ever seen this universal form before, and there's never been any description of it. Now, there's a description of it. Arjuna is actually seeing it, and some of the demigods also saw it at the same time. Right. And then it says, you have been perturbed and bewildered by seeing this horrible feature of mine. Now let it be finished. My devotee, be free again from all disturbances. With a peaceful mind, you can now see the form you desire. All right? And then later on, Arjuna says, okay, now I saw you as Narayana, but I really want to see you as Krishna in your original form. Okay. So then, let's read that, because this is very important. Okay. Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, this is verse 50 of the 11th chapter. Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, having spoken thus to Arjuna, displayed his real four-armed form, and at last showed his two-armed form, thus encouraging the fearful Arjuna. Okay. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, when Krishna appeared as the son of Vyasadeva and Devaki, he first of all appeared as four-armed Narayana. Now he's explaining something else, because this is not the only time that Krishna is showing that he can manifests himself in two-armed form, in four-armed form, and even the Virat Rupa, right? So he says, Prabhupada is explaining, when Krishna appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, he first of all appeared in his four-armed Narayana form. But when he was requested by his parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child in appearance. Similarly, Krishna knew that Arjuna was not interested in seeing a four-handed form, but since Arjuna asked to see this four-handed form, Krishna also showed him this form again, and then showed himself in his two-handed form. The word Somya Vapu is very significant. Somya Vapu is a very beautiful form. It is known as the most beautiful form. When he was present, everyone was attracted simply by Krishna's form, and because Krishna is the director of the universe, he just banished the fear of Arjuna, his devotee, and showed him again his beautiful form of Krishna. In the Brahma Samhita 538, it is stated, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena, only a person whose eyes are smeared with the ointment of love can the beautiful form, can he see the beautiful form of Sri Krishna. Okay. Now, next verse, it's 51. It says, when Arjuna saw Krishna in his original form, two-handed form, he said, O Janardhan, seeing this human-like form, so very beautiful, I am now composed in mind, and I am restored to my original nature. So now Arjuna's fear has gone away, and he's completely peaceful now. Here the words Manusam Rupam clearly indicate that the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be originally two-handed. Those who deride Krishna as if he were an ordinary person are shown here to be ignorant of his divine nature. If Krishna is like an ordinary human being, then how is it possible for him to show the universal form and again to show the four-handed Narayana form? So it is very clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, one who thinks that Krishna is an ordinary person and who misguides the reader by claiming that it is the impersonal Brahman within Krishna speaking is doing the greatest injustice. So there he's talking about the professor, I'll think of his name in a minute, who wrote a book about God and claimed that it's the impersonal Brahman that's God. It's not the form of Krishna. Right? Dr. Radha Krishna. Huh?
Dr. Sarvapalli.
Yeah, he was president of India, right? And later on he wrote a book about Krishna. And it said, so Krishna has actually shown his universal form and his four-handed Vishnu form. So how can he be an ordinary human being? A pure devotee is not confused by misguiding commentaries on Bhagavad Gita because he knows what is what. The original verses of Bhagavad Gita are as clear as the sun. They do not require lamplight from foolish commentators. So he didn't want to mention his name, but that's who it is. It's Dr. Radha Krishna. And wait a minute, he does mention him. Let's see. I think he does mention him. Okay, in the second chapter, let's see what it says here. It says, in the second chapter, verse number 7, right at the end, the last two sentences, he says, and yet foolish mundane scholars explain that one need not submit to Krishna as a person, but to the unborn within Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's within and without, and one who has no sense of this understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand Bhagavad Gita. Again, he's referring to Dr. Radha Krishna. He didn't name him, but he does name him in the book on these same points, but it goes more into depth in showing how much nonsense he is in Renunciation Through Wisdom. I'll bring that tomorrow and we'll read it. He actually names him. Okay. So then it says, then he says, verse 52, 1152, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, this form of mind you are now seeing is very difficult to behold. Even the demigods are ever seeking the opportunity to see this form which is so dear." So that's the form of Tribhanga, three angle form of Krishna holding the flute, or Krishna on the chariot holding the reins of the chariot, and he's saying this is very difficult. Even the demigods can't see this form, right? So in the 48th verse of this chapter, meaning 1148, Krishna concluded revealing his universal form and informed Arjuna that this form is not possible to be seen by so many pious activities, sacrifices, etc. Now here the word Sudurdarsham is used, indicating that Krishna's two-handed form is still more confidential. You can't even see the Virat Rupa, but his two-armed form is even more confidential, right? In other words, more hard to see. One may be able to see the universal form of Krishna by adding a little tinge of devotional service to various activities like penances, Vedic study, and philosophical speculation. It may be possible, but without a tinge of bhakti, one cannot see. That has already been explained. Still, beyond that universal form, the form of Krishna with two hands is still more difficult to see, even for demigods like Brahma and Lord Shiva. They desire to see him, and we have evidence in the Srimad Bhagavatam that when he was supposed to be in the womb of his mother, Devaki, all the demigods from heaven came to see the marvel of Krishna. And they offered nice prayers to the Lord, although he was not at that time visible to them. They waited to see him. A foolish person may deride him, thinking him an ordinary person, and may offer respect not to him, but to the impersonal something within him, like Dr. Radhakrishna. But these are all nonsensical postures. Krishna in his two-armed form is actually desired to be seen by demigods like Brahma and Shiva. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:11, it is also confirmed, Abhijanati mam mudha manasim tanam asritaha. He is not visible to the foolish persons who deride him. Krishna's body, as confirmed by Brahma Samhita and confirmed by Krishna himself in Brahma Samhita, is completely spiritual and full of bliss and eternality. His body is never like a material body, but for some who make a study of Krishna by reading Bhagavad Gita or similar scriptures, Krishna is a problem. For one using a material process, Krishna is considered to be a great historical personality and very learned philosopher, but he is an ordinary man, and even though he was so powerful, he had to accept a material body. Ultimately, they think that the absolute truth is impersonal. Therefore, they think that from his impersonal feature, he assumed a personal feature attached to material nature. This is a materialistic calculation of the Supreme Lord. Another calculation is speculative. Those who are in search of knowledge also speculate on Krishna and consider him to be less important than the universal form of the Supreme. Wow. There's all kinds of speculations, right? Thus, some think that the universal form of Krishna, which was manifested to Arjuna, is more important than his personal form. According to them, the personal form of the Supreme is something imaginary. They believe that in the ultimate issue, the absolute truth is not a person, but the transcendental process is described in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, to hear about Krishna from authorities. That is the actual Vedic process, and those who are actually in the Vedic line hear about Krishna from authority, and by repeated hearing about him, Krishna becomes dear. As we have several times discussed, Krishna is covered by his yoga maya potency. He is not to be seen or revealed to anyone and everyone, only by one to whom he reveals himself can he be seen. This is confirmed in Vedic literature. For one who is a surrendered soul, the absolute truth can actually be seen. The transcendentalists, by continuous Krishna consciousness and by devotional service to Krishna, can have his spiritual eyes opened and can see him by revelation. Such a revelation is not possible even for the demigods. Therefore, it is difficult even for the demigods to understand Krishna. And the advanced demigods are always in hope of seeing Krishna. In other words, there are 33 million demigods. You need that many to manage the universe. Just in Seattle, there are over 5,000 people employed by the city of Seattle to manage the city. And that's one city in the United States on this planet Earth. So it's not far-fetched that there are 33 million demigods. You need that many to manage the universe. Krishna can do it by himself, but he delegates the authority because he is always engaged in transcendental pastimes with his devotees in the spiritual world. And but he expands himself. Sometimes he assumes the form of Brahma himself. If there's no one person highly advanced spiritually to manage a universe, Krishna will manifest himself as Brahma, sometimes also as Shiva. Most of the time, that position is a titular position. Therefore, it means that different people can hold that position. So when there are qualified people, they can hold that position. But sometimes Krishna will appear as Brahma or Shiva. And of course, he's there as Vishnu to manage, because there's no suitable person to take that position. So these are all interesting points. Okay, so Krishna obviously can do anything he wants. He's not limited by anything. According to them, the personal form of the Supreme is something imaginary. They believe that in the ultimate issue, the absolute truth is not a person. But the transcendental process is described in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4. To hear about Krishna from authorities, tadvidi paripatena paripastena sevaya. That is the actual Vedic process, and those who are actually in the Vedic line hear about Krishna from authority, and by repeated hearing about him, Krishna becomes dear to them. As we have several times discussed, Krishna is covered by his Yoga Maya potency. He is not to be seen or revealed to anyone and everyone. Only by one to whom he reveals himself can he be seen. This is confirmed in Vedic literature. For one who is a surrendered soul, the absolute truth can actually be understood. Yashab Devi Parabhakti Yata Devi Tata Kuru Tasyate Karita Hi Artak Prakasante Mahatmanaha. So one becomes a Mahatma, capable to see Krishna. This is from the Srutasrutara Upanishad. When they have complete faith in Krishna and Guru, then Krishna reveals himself to the devotee by revelation. The transcendentalist, by continuous Krishna consciousness and by devotional service to Krishna, can have his spiritual eyes opened and can see Krishna by revelation. So that's what happened to Arjuna. He got his spiritual eyes opened. Not his material eyes, his spiritual eyes. The soul has eyes also. Such a revelation is not possible even for the demigods. Therefore, it's difficult even for the demigods to understand Krishna. And the advanced demigods are always in hope of seeing Krishna in his two-handed form. So you have different levels of demigods. The most elevated demigods like Brahma, Shiva, and so forth, they can actually see Krishna at special times. But the lower demigods, they don't have that same ability, unless they do something exceptional that Krishna is pleased by them. The conclusion is that although to see the universal form of Krishna is very, very difficult and not possible for anyone and everyone, it is still more difficult to understand his personal form as Shama Sundara. There it is. So this is why I wanted to go over this verse again today, because you have to have the background of having read carefully the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita in order to understand what this verse is talking about. Where it says in the purport to Canto 2, Chapter 10, verse 35, the impersonalists think of the absolute personality of God in two different ways, as above mentioned. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in his Vishwarupa, or all-pervading universal form. And on the other hand, they think of the Lord's unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. Okay, that's the Brahmajyoti. The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to these two conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle, but both of them are rejected by the learned, pure devotees of the Lord because they are aware of the factual position. They have read the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This is very clearly mentioned in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which records Arjuna's experience of the Vishwarupa of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So that's what we just did. Arjuna, as a pure devotee of the Lord, never previously saw the contemplated universal form of the Lord, Vishwarupa. But when he did see it, his curiosities were satisfied. But he was not happy to see such a form of the Lord because of his attachment as a pure devotee. What does that mean, his attachment? He's attached to Krishna because Krishna is the most beautiful, the most powerful personality. So obviously you become attached to Krishna when you learn about all his transcendental qualities. He was afraid to see the gigantic form of the Lord. He therefore prayed to the Lord to assume his four-handed Narayana or Krishna form, which alone could please Arjuna. Undoubtedly, the Lord has the supreme potency to exhibit himself in multifarious forms, but the pure devotees of the Lord are interested in his forms as eternally exhibited in the abode of the Lord, known as the Tripad Vibhuti, or the kingdom of God. So, there are incarnations of Krishna that do not have eternal planets in the spiritual world. There's a list of them. You have to read I'll think of the book in a second. The Teachings of Lord Chaitanya book. Then you'll see the full list of all the non-eternal incarnations of Krishna. But the eternal incarnations of Krishna that have eternal planets in the spiritual world, devotees are focused on them. So there are temporary manifestations of Krishna in the material world. Well, one of them is Virat Rupa, okay? And then there are other incarnations of Krishna that don't have eternal planets in the spiritual, like Mohini Murti, and there's a bunch of others, okay? So the devotee says the Lord, in the Tripad Vibhuti form, exhibits himself in two forms, either with four hands or with two hands. So the Lord in Vaikuntha and Goloka, Tripad Vibhuti means the 3/4 of the spiritual world. There's only 1/4 of Krishna's creation that is the material world. But there's another 3/4 that's not created but is eternal, and that's the spiritual world. Okay. The Lord in the Tripad Vibhuti exhibits himself in two forms, either with four hands or with two hands. The Vishwarupa exhibited in the material manifestation has unlimited hands and unlimited dimensions, with everything unlimited. The pure devotees of the Lord worship him in his Vaikuntha forms as Narayana or Vishnu. So the Sri Vaishnavas, they worship Krishna as Narayana. So did Bismadev. That's a choice that people make. But Arjuna is worshiping Krishna in his absolute original form as Krishna, as Sham Sundar. Sometimes the same Vaikuntha forms of the Lord are in the material world also by his grace, as Sri Rama, who's an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, of Narayana, Sri Krishna, or Sri Narasingha Deva, and etc. And thus, the pure devotees also worship them. So Narasingha Deva, Lord Rama, and of course Krishna, all three have eternal planets in the spiritual world. Usually the features shown in the material world have no existence in the Vaikuntha planets, and thus they are not accepted by the pure devotees. What the pure devotees worship from the very beginning are eternal forms of the Lord existing in the Vaikuntha planets. The non-devotee impersonalists imagine the material forms of the Lord, and ultimately they merge in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti of the Lord, whereas the pure devotees of the Lord are worshippers of the Lord both in the beginning and also in the perfect stage of salvation eternally. The worship of the pure devotee never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops after his attainment of salvation, when he merges in the impersonal form of the Lord known as the Brahma Jyoti. Therefore, the pure devotees of the Lord are described here as Vipaschita, or the learned who are in the knowledge of the Lord perfectly. So we see the Mayavadis, they have imperfect knowledge or incomplete knowledge of Krishna. But the devotees, because of the devotional service, because of accepting bona fide scriptures spoken by bona fide devotees, they have a complete understanding of the truth. Okay, that's why I wanted to go over this. So if you don't have the background of Bhagavad Gita, you will not understand what he's talking about in this purport, right? And there's even other parts of the purport that can be further explained, but we'll stop right now. Are there any questions? Yes.
So what I have some maybe try to understand. I didn't understand some part of it, like Krishna. But if he is coming in the following lecture, I can wait. But about this Vaikuntha form. So how do we understand that Krishna? We see that Krishna is in Goloka. Let's say, I mean, we see Krishna is originally existed in Goloka, but Vaikuntha form. We are saying Krishna is also in Vaikuntha form. So Krishna is one of the here in the purport mentioned.
No. Vaikuntha form is referring to Narayana, four-armed.
So here it says that
Krishna form is referring to him in his original form from which all the Narayanas come, and that's in Goloka. There are two parts of the spiritual world, Vaikuntha and Goloka. They're both liberated. They're both eternal, right? It's not that, Vaikuntha is not the same as Goloka. No, both are eternal. Both are complete liberated states. You understand?
Yeah.
But in Vaikuntha, one worships Narayana with awe and reverence. And in Goloka, one worships Krishna with intimacy, without any rules and regulations, because everyone has pure love for the Lord. But in Vaikuntha, there are very strict rules and regulations. There's rituals, and they worship Narayana with awe and reverence.
Yeah, but this very line actually confused me, saying that.
So it says Sri Rama, Krishna, and Nrsimha.
Vaikuntha. So Krishna, sometimes the same Vaikuntha forms of the Lord are in the material world also by His grace, as Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, and Sri Nrsimhadev. Right. So that actually confused me.
Because Lord Rama has an eternal planet.
Yeah.
In the spiritual world. Nrsimhadev also has an eternal planet in the spiritual world. And of course Krishna does too. And sometimes when you say Vaikuntha, it refers both Vaikuntha and Goloka. That's why you're getting confused. Vaikuntha can refer to only Vaikuntha where Lord Narayana is, or it can also refer to Goloka. Why? Because Vaikuntha means without any anxiety. So
Okay,
there's no
okay.
anxiety in Vaikuntha and there's no anxiety in Goloka.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. And one more question, quick. So
Yes.
it is, I'm trying to understand. So in the
So
BG,
there are certain incarnations of Krishna in the material world that do not have eternal planets in the spiritual world.
yeah,
And there are other incarnations of Krishna that do have eternal planets in the spiritual world.
yeah,
So if you read the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, you'll see the names of those incarnations in the material world that do not have eternal planets in the spiritual world.
yeah. So the another question about the BG, the Bhagavad Gita 11.50 we purport, it is mentioned that Krishna appeared as four-arm form as a child for Vasudeva.
When he appeared to convince Vasudeva and Devaki that the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared.
Okay. Because they
He
don't
appeared as Narayana, a little baby, but he has
four-arm form, yeah.
all the trappings of Narayana with 4 arms.
Yeah, yeah. So that is
And
what
then-
my
and
question
then
was.
Mother Yasoda got scared. Said, "Oh my God! If
Yeah.
Kamsa sees this little baby with 4 arms, he'll know it's God, and he'll try and kill it." So then because she's in a state of illusion, right? So, but under Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. So she prays that somehow this 4-armed form should change to 2 arms, and that's what happened.
Yeah. Because is it because they
See,
have
if she knows that the 2-armed form of Krishna is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, she would not be able to intimately care for him. Sometimes she punishes him, ties him up and scares him and chases after him. She wouldn't be able to do that. Just like Arjuna, he sees the universal form and he feels, oh my God, I've insulted Krishna. Sometimes I put my head on his lap and I dangle my feet in the air and I ask him to do things for me. And, so Arjuna became afraid after seeing the universal form of Krishna because he realized, my God, this person is my relative and my best friend. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I insulted him by treating him intimately. You see? So for the other mother is for Devaki or Mother Yasoda to deal with Krishna in an intimate way, they're put into illusion by Yoga Maya. But that illusion of Yoga Maya brings them closer to Krishna. You see? And then for the demons, Mahamaya puts them into illusion by which they go away from Krishna.
yeah.
Okay, so which one are you under now?
I don't know. I'm not in. No, but as you were saying that means Mother Yashoda knows that the original form.
No,
she was
she
a.
doesn't.
She doesn't. Okay.
She doesn't.
Okay.
Neither
Okay.
does Mother
Sorry, I
Devaki.
misunderstood. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
She had understanding of Narayana as the Supreme Person, but she doesn't know
most
the.
people have the
yeah,
understanding.
yeah.
Narayana is
That's why there is a confusion between
No,
Vaishnava.
wait a minute. Narayana is the Supreme Personality
Supreme.
of Godhead.
Yeah.
But the source of Narayana is Krishna.
Yeah. That's what actually most of the Vaishnava very hard
Sri
to
Vaishnavas
to
don't
understand.
accept
Yeah.
that. Sri
Yeah.
Vaishnavas don't accept that.
Yeah.
They think that Narayana is the source of Krishna.
Right.
Unless you come to class, all these misconceptions, you accept the misconception, right? That's not to belittle Narayana. Narayana is not different than Krishna, right? But there are some things that he doesn't have. That's also explained in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. There are 4 qualities that Narayana does not have that Krishna has. One of them is playing the flute.
Because they say that then why actually Narayana, why Krishna came? If he is a Krishna original, why he came in the 4-arm form? Why can't he just come?
To convince Devaki and Vasudeva that God appeared as their child. That's what they prayed for. For 12,000 years they did tapasya so that God will come to them. But for them, God is Narayana. Okay, you have a question?
Just a clarification on Maharaj that you had mentioned their forms, Krishna's forms, those don't have planet in the spiritual world.
Some incarnations of Krishna.
So
in
there,
the material world do not have eternal planets in the spiritual.
yes. So those some incarnations are all material incarnation. That's the reason.
No, they're not material.
Like Virat Rupa, we read Virat Rupa
Virat Rupa is special. That's material. Yeah.
okay. But not the
Not Mohini Murti and others.
okay. Okay. Thank you.
They have spiritual bodies. Because whenever Krishna appears, he is not conditioned. Even Virat Rupa is not conditioned by the material nature. But but Virat Rupa is a material form, therefore it's temporary. It doesn't exist in the spiritual world. It only exists in the material world. Unless these things are explained, right, you get confused. It has to be explained. Simply reading that's why I went over this purport a second time. There's a lot of background information you need in order to understand what he's talking about in this one purport. That's why we went to the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, so that you get that background understanding. Then it becomes more understandable. And there's still other points that have to be clarified, not clarified, but explained. Because you need a background knowledge to be able to understand what he's talking about. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Who wants to sing? Okay.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Bandmui Savadhan Mate.
Bandmui Savadhana Mate.
Jahar Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai.
Janar Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai.
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoyte.
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoyte.
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite te koriya kya.
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite te koriya kya.
Arna kori ho mane asha.
Arna koriya mane asha.
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati.
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati.
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha.
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha.
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेमा भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाशा जायते भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाशा जायते वेदे गाय जहार चरितो वेदे गाय जन्नर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना हाँ प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया ए बेजाज गुशिक त्रिभुवाना ए बेजाज त्रिभुवाना शीला प्रभुपाद पतित पवना शीला प्रभुपाद पतित पवना जय प्रभुपादा 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 जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Shri Guru.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pararajagachas Tatara Satara Shri Shimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantara Koti Rice Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sikoho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Vaidikadhar Srivasti Guru Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled divine. All glories to the assembled. All glories to the assembled. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavana ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutili Samati Bhaktivedanta Swami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vali Pacharani. Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatani. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes. With the transcendental knowledge is my Lord birth after birth. From the ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Loknath Goswami, O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds.